Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast. I'm Phil Kitramalides, joined once again by Mark O'Hare and Ian Broderick, looking for more winners. We've had a few winners already so far when looking at Europe's premier club competition, and we're hoping for more. Ahead of Matchday 3, there are some really interesting looking games. We've picked out 4 to really analyze. We're going to go through them one by one. We're going to round up our selections, and then we're going to pick our best bets of the week, which, as I said, so far have proved pretty profitable. Brothers, Mark, welcome along. We are looking forward to this round of fixtures. It's been intense, hasn't it, Mark? We've had 3 weeks back-to-back Champions League. We're not used to this.
No, we're not. It's quite interesting, I think, from when you look at these clubs, how they're sort of scheduling their own players and resting and rotating. It seems to be the emphasis is on the Champions League rather than the league itself. I've seen quite a few of the bigger clubs around Europe sort of focusing all their attention on Europe and resting those players in sort of Premier League games or league games elsewhere. So that's quite interesting, which means, of those games that you talked about at the start, we should get, as close to first 11s as possible. Obviously missing a few injuries and COVID issues as well. But it's all geared up to have another round of great entertaining football, which is great, which is what we want in the Champions League.
We are live across Matchbook's social media accounts, so you're watching us on Twitter, Facebook or YouTube. Feel free to send us a comment. We will include it, and if you want to get involved in the show, and if you're listening to us on the podcast, that's absolutely fine as well. Make sure you're subscribed to us wherever you get your podcasts. Let's kick off then with the game that we are really looking forward to, Liverpool against Atalanta. You can probably, if you're a regular watcher or listening to the podcast, you will probably guess what our bet is for this game. But anyway, here we go. Here are the odds. Atalanta, you can get them at 3.26 to win. Liverpool at 2.15 and the draw at 4.1. Of course, odds correct at the time of recording. Atalanta with a quarter goal head start, you can get them at 2.05. Liverpool minus 0.25 on the Asian, you can get them at 1.87. The goals line is over 3.5, and that's at 1.97 at the moment. I know, brothers, you and backing Atalanta over 3.5 goals is something of a love affair. It's proved a very successful love affair over the last few weeks, months, even the last year or so. Is it going to continue this week?
Yes.
Good. We love a bit of romance on the program.
I don't think anyone needs to hear us describe how Atalanta play now. I think they're a side that is well known for their approach under Gasperini. They rested, as Mark said, they rested a number of players at the weekend. Still managed to beat Crotone 1-2 to keep up their record of conceding in pretty much every game bar the Midtjylland one.
Including friendlies as well, as you said last week. We looked at their pre-season friendlies. They conceded in all the pre-season friendlies as well.
It's just what they do. And this is a huge game. I think these are the two sides that we'd expect to progress from this group. And Atalanta will have ambition to top the group. And I think that they stand a decent chance of doing so. I think Liverpool, without Van Dijk, are vulnerable at the back, as they haven't been for a few seasons now. Again, weirdly, they've managed to keep 2 clean sheets in this competition, but I don't think in either of those games they were particularly convincing in keeping those clean sheets. I think Ajax and Midtjylland could both, Ajax especially could have scored plenty of goals. So I think the obvious way to approach this game is goals. Getting even money. To be honest, I was astonished that we're getting around even money for over 3.5 in this, because Liverpool's attacking prowess is there. I really like the way that Diogo Jota has slipped into the side and is pushing for a starting place. Wouldn't surprise me at all, actually, if he actually manages to start this match, perhaps in place of Firmino. Salah and Mane, they're not necessarily hitting the heights that they've hit from the last couple of years, but they're still very, very difficult to defend against. And as we know, Atalanta can't defend and don't like defending and won't defend. So this is going to be a very entertaining, high-scoring game. I'll get closer to game time and I'll have a look at Atalanta with the handicap start as well, because I think at home they will really be pushing for something for this game. And based on the odds, I think getting a quarter point start at odds against is very fair. but the main bet has to be goals, and there's no point overcomplicating it.
Atalanta have only ever played 11 games in the Champions League. 9 of those have seen over 2.5 goals. I actually had a quick check at what over 2.5 goals was, and it was currently around about 1.35, which I don't think anyone's rushing to invest too heavily in. Over 3.25, for those of you who are a little bit more cautious, was about 1.76. But I mean, we're starting off with a pretty simple one, aren't we, Mark? I mean, it has to be goals in this. It does, exactly what it says on the tin. Atalanta, Liverpool, goals.
Yeah, exactly. So no need to trivialise it. I mean, I was keen on Atalanta before that Ajax game, but the market seems to be unconvinced by them this season. I think that's 4 of the last 5 games or 5 of the last 6 now where they've drifted in the market pre-match, including both Champions League games as well. That game was one of the best games of the round, actually. They started superbly, started like a train, then gave away a stupid penalty and defensive error made it 2-0. Ajax, in fairness, then were the best team in the first half, but Gasperini just has so much belief in that team. He kept the team as it was. I don't think he made any changes until about the 80th minute, and they came roaring back into the game, scored twice, could easily have won it as well. So, there's full belief in what they do. I think from an Atalanta perspective, team news-wise, I'd wait and see. Darun, who Gasperini loves in the big games, is going to be missing again. Gustons and Caldara went off injured at the weekend. Hattabor and Romero as well. So they might be missing a few. I know Muriel was sort of sacrificed at half-time to preserve him. Ilicic hasn't been quite the same since his absence either, but certainly defensively they're going to be a little bit weaker, and the same could be said of Liverpool. I know this morning we've heard news that Matip is now touch and go really at whether he plays or not, and that'll be a big boost if he does. But as Rod has said, in both their Champions League games so far, I wouldn't say they've been cut open consistently, but they have offered chances to both teams they've played. They've actually conceded the first goal in 4 of the last 5 Premier League games as well. And it's just 1 Premier League clean sheet all season. That was against Chelsea, who were down to 10 men for most of the match as well. So Atalanta should be licking their lips at this, should be realising there's a great opportunity to cause a bit of a surprise, I guess. But you just have to look at their games against Man City last year in the group phase. The 2 matches averaged 4.5 expected goals, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we went close to that mark again. But with Brothers, over 3.5 would be the best bet for this one.
Liverpool have got the worst defensive record in the Premier League. Okay, they conceded 7 to Aston Villa. They're top, they're champions, and they've got the worst defensive record in the Champions League. Surely goals on Tuesday or Wednesday night when Atalanta take on Liverpool. Let's move on and talk about another game featuring an Italian side. This one, potentially the blockbuster fixture of Matchday 3, certainly in terms of history and prestige. Real Madrid against Inter. Real Madrid, you can get them at 1.925 to claim their first win in Group B. You can get Inter at 3.9 to claim what would be their first win in Group B. The draw at around about 4.1. Real Madrid minus a half goal handicap 1.93. Inter with a plus half goal handicap at 1.99. The goal line set at over 3 for this one, and you can get that at 1.83. Obviously, this is a strange game, certainly in terms of how the group has panned out so far. I don't think anyone before would have been thinking that coming into this game, neither of these two sides would have won. But Real Madrid only 1 point from 6 after their 2 games. Their really abysmal performance against Shakhtar Donetsk. They were beaten on Matchday 1 and then claiming a last-gasp victory against Borussia Mönchengladbach last week, and Inter drawing against Borussia Mönchengladbach and drawing against Shakhtar Donetsk. Both sides coming into this game desperate to win, or I suppose just desperate to not lose. Certainly from Inter's perspective, a draw wouldn't be a bad result. Real Madrid won at the weekend. They won convincingly as well, beating Huesca at home. And the big news for them, Eden Hazard started that game, his first start since August. He scored an absolutely sensational goal as well. Played an hour, looked pretty fit, looked like he was on top of his game, and that is big news for Real Madrid. Is it, Mark, big enough news for us to be interested in backing Real Madrid?
Not for me at odds on, no. I'm still yet to be convinced that Real Madrid are back to anywhere near close to their best. Bar that Clasico, I've not been overly enthused by what I've seen in the opening few weeks of the season. Even at the weekend, if you look at the first half, for example, Rafa Mir and Huesca caused many problems. Balls over the top. Real Madrid didn't really know how to deal with it for a lot of it, and I wouldn't say they were fortunate to go in there sort of without conceding too many goals in the first half, but there were certainly opportunities as well as many positives, obviously, going forward. And I think you just need to look at the raw stats in La Liga to see only 4 goalkeepers have made more saves than Why can I not remember Real Madrid's goalkeeper's name?
Courtois.
Courtois.
Lad. Yeah.
And only five sides have actually faced more shots in La Liga as well than Real Madrid. So out of possession, there is concerns there for me with Real, particularly at right back. We talked about it last week, and Vasquez is now a major doubt for this. As far as I heard this morning, Militao's been ruled out with a positive COVID test. So you've got Carvajal injured, Odriozola injured, Nacho injured. I really don't know who's going to be playing right back in this game. Presumably Marcelo will play left back and Mendy come across to right back. But it doesn't exactly fill you with confidence. I guess the caveat is obviously Inter Milan love to play with width with their wing backs pushing high up the field as well. But they're probably going to be missing Lukaku as well. Italian press this morning is saying that it'll take a bit of a miracle for him to be fit. He missed the game against Parma, persistent thigh problem which he injured in the last Champions League game. He's basically been their standout player by an enormous amount, scoring almost all their goals as well, and they're playing Atalanta at the weekend as well, so there could be a temptation for them to rest him up a little bit further. For Inter, they've shown flashes this season, too many brain farts defensively, teething problems as well, dominating a lot of gap matches bar that game against Milan where they lost, but just not taking their chances, and we saw that at Shakhtar as well. So it's hard to sort of get a real read on either of these two teams. I think I just don't want to back Real Madrid at odds on. That earlier in the week or at the weekend, over 2 3/4 goals was available. It's long gone since, and that would have been my play. I guess over 3 is the next best, but needing 4 goals or more, and I think you kind of gave us the quandary there at the start there, Phil. Two teams who basically need a win, but almost probably don't want to lose either. So how are we going to read these two teams, particularly Inter? They have been conceding goals, but I guess if Lukaku plays, I do fancy them to get amongst the goals as well. So the group dynamics are quite fascinating. You're hopeful for an open and attacking game, but I wouldn't be too surprised if Inter sort of batten down the hatches and almost try to play out for a point as well. So I haven't got a massive steer on this one. I'm hoping Brothers can help me out a bit.
Brothers, can you help out a little bit? What are you feeling on this one? Because it is a little bit difficult. Don't worry, it's okay. You don't absolutely have to give us a tip, but just some general guidance would be nice.
I mean, to be fair, I think Mark's covered a lot of the points that I would make on this. I mean, I think team news is going to be vital. A few of the games this week, we're waiting for late team news to see what happens. I think both of these sides have shown that they are capable of conceding goals. Although Inter's match with Shakhtar last week was awful. I mean, frankly, I personally backed goals in that game and watched it. And Shakhtar obviously set out not to lose, and Inter couldn't break them down.
It finished 0-0.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you for those that didn't know. So I think looking at this match from a tactical perspective, I suspect we're going to be seeing Real Madrid with plenty of the ball, Inter looking to break on them. I'm expecting Lukaku not to be fit. That's how I'm sort of approaching it. So we'd like to see Lautaro, probably Alexis Sanchez, maybe playing in a number 10 type role off him. I think the most interesting aspect of this game is if Hazard starts, as he should, obviously, having come back at the weekend. His battle with Hakimi down that flank will be a fascinating one, because Hakimi will be looking to push in behind, and obviously Hazard won't be tracking back because he doesn't track back. And so whether or not Hakimi can get any success down that flank will be...
With Marcelo potentially playing at left back as well.
Well, also, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we know that Hakimi's going to have a very strong motivation in this game against his old side, or he never really got much of a chance with Real anyway. But, he's, for me, the best attacking wing back in the world right now. I mean, I think he's a fabulous player. I'm absolutely astonished that Real Madrid didn't try and hold on to him over the summer, or what the reasons were for selling him. Carvajal's not getting any younger. Odriozola, I'm not convinced about. So I thought he was a great fit for them, but obviously there were reasons. But yeah, I think for me it's a game that I might get involved with nearer the time, but it's not one for a bet now, because for all the reasons Mark said, I think it's just a very, very hard game to weigh up with the way the teams are playing at the moment. They're both not playing consistently well, especially not Real. And if pushed, I'd probably take Inter plus a half. Because I think Conte is better tactically than Zidane, which I know is an awful thing to say to you, Phil, but I think that possibly is the case. And we'd have to see. I know you're going to agree. That's fine.
Well, there are a few European Cups that disagree. But yeah.
Well, he had Cristiano Ronaldo, didn't they?
He did. That does help. These were the two best defensive sides in their respective leagues last season. Inter, the best defensive side in Serie A, conceded the fewest number of goals. Real Madrid conceded the fewest number of goals in La Liga. But both of them, as we've alluded to, are conceding goals this season. I'm not here to give my tips, but if I was, I would potentially look at the over 3 goals. But there we go. That's just my gut feeling. If both of them were at their best, like they were last season, definitely unders. But they're both conceding chances, so I'd have a look at the goals. Let's move on and talk about Brothers' favourite side in Europe, in European competition. That is Paris Saint-Germain, who he perennially backs to win the competition and perennially loses his money. But hopefully this week, sorry, brothers, sorry. One of these days I will stop mentioning it. I will, I promise. They're away. They're in Germany this week. It is it's a replay of the semi-finals from last season. Leipzig hosting PSG. Leipzig at 3.30 to win. You can get PSG at 2.26 with the draw at 3.72. Leipzig with a quarter goal start at 1.95. PSG minus a quarter goal at 1.98 with the goal line set at 3.25. 2.01 that is on offer. It's been a horrible week for RB Leipzig. Of course, thrashed at Old Trafford last week by Manchester United 5-0, and then they lost their first Bundesliga game of the season at the weekend 1-0 to Borussia Mönchengladbach. PSG have recovered from that very strange wobble at the start of the season in Ligue 1. They're top of the table. They're very strong on the road in the Champions League as well. They beat Leipzig comfortably 3-0 2.5 months ago. So why, Mark? Why should I not be backing PSG to win this game? Surely that's the bet, PSG to win.
Yeah, but, we just talked about Real Madrid and Inter Milan as well, and PSG would fall into the same category in terms of just not being anywhere close to the levels that they were last season. I think the United defeat raised questions over the recruitment and stirred the sort of tension between Thomas Tuchel and the sporting director Leonardo again. Tuchel wanted a centre-back in the summer after Thiago Silva left, didn't get one, so he started playing Danilo, a centre midfielder by trade, at centre-half, while playing Marquinhos in defensive midfield. They did beat Başakşehir in Turkey last week, but it wasn't comfortable at all. The Turks put them under plenty of pressure. Should really have probably scored in that match. And the French press have been really scathing about their performances recently, particularly on Saturday when they beat Nantes 3-0. Said it was, Nantes were missing pretty much their entire back four, but the reports said they were monotonous, lacking rhythm, lacking excitement. They had 63% of the ball in the first half and only had 6 shots, none of which were on target. And, Neymar's missing. Neymar's injured, which is a big blow. And also that midfield right now for me is lacking spark. It's lacking invention and creativity. Verratti's missing as well. You've essentially got 3 plodders in there. So there's a clear breakdown between sort of defensive midfield. There's little balance, little link there between what they've got in defence and going forward. So Di Maria might be asked to drop back. That's what I would potentially do to try and add a little bit of life into that midfield. But he's looked off the pace a little bit because he's been banned domestically as well. So, yeah, it's they did outclass Leipzig in the semi-final not so long ago. They were 1.85 favourites in Portugal, 2.25 here in Germany. So I'd say prices are probably around fair. I just wonder whether this game might go a little bit against the grain in terms of the goal line. No Neymar, obviously, either. Just seeing Leipzig struggles as well. You kind of look at that team recently, might be getting results in the Bundesliga this weekend. They just haven't looked themselves compared to last season. Nagelsmann particularly just seemed a little bit confused by their performances, particularly that Old Trafford, where I guess the setup himself didn't exactly help. But for large parts of that game, Leipzig had the territory and the possession in United's half, and just didn't do anything with it. And they weren't overly convincing against Başakşehir either. They did play a little bit better against Gladbach on Saturday, but lost it. And just chance creation has been a bit of an issue, really. So, I kind of look at the potential PSG midfield and attack: Marquinhos, Herrera, Gay, Di Maria, Mbappe, Keane. There's talent there, but there's not a huge amount of creativity. And barring Mbappe, when he's been asked to do it all on himself, I just wonder whether Leipzig might be able to contain them and counter them as well. So I actually started looking more towards opposing the goal line at 3.25, where you'd earn a half stakes win if there's exactly 3 goals, a full stakes if there's 2 goals or fewer, only losing if there's 4 goals or more, which I appreciate is is probably testing it a little bit, considering how these two teams like to operate. But yeah, that's just where I'm edging it at the moment. I think it's another tricky game to call. Could probably make a case for both teams. But I just think maybe that goal line might be a little bit big, considering the group dynamics again, where neither of these two teams can really afford to lose, with United 6 points from 6 ahead of 2 back-to-back games against Başakşehir.
Okay, I was pretty confident in my PSG selection. You have brought me right back down to earth, Mark. I'm a little bit more realistic, and perhaps opposing the goal line might not be a bad idea. Brothers, are you with me on PSG, or are you edging towards the goals as well?
I'm kind of with Mark, actually, which I know sounds like heresy given your build to me and my PSG love. But
Yes.
I mean, the other worrying aspect they didn't touch on was Mbappe coming off after around 70, 75 minutes.
He's okay, apparently. That was Tuchel said it was a precaution.
Yeah, they said it was fatigue, didn't they? But I still have an image of him sort of walking down the tunnel, sort of holding the back of his left thigh. Which, I think if I was Tuchel, I'd probably be saying there'd be no issues either, and that there's no injury. But when you've got no Neymar and Mbappe may or may not be at 100%, it doesn't strike me as being a PSG side that's got an awful lot else to offer. I mean, Moise Kean has come in and has done okay, well, more than okay. He scored 4 goals in his first couple of games, but it's all about service for him. And if you're not getting service because you just haven't got the quality in midfield and those attacking positions, I'm not sure that he's a player that's going to produce stuff for himself, if that makes sense. So, I look at Sarabia. Sarabia's been incredibly disappointing for me since he's joined PSG. And they're a side that needs Neymar and Mbappe. And without one or both of them, they can struggle. I mean, I know that obviously a fully fit Mbappe can carry that team and they can get great results. But I think, as Mark has already touched on, Di Maria is looking a bit off the pace because of his lack of involvement in league football at the moment. I think Leipzig will, if anything, I'd be leaning towards Leipzig on the handicaps for this game, because I think they're a tough side at home. I think they've got the ability to switch things around. We haven't seen much of Hwang so far this season, for example. I mean, I'm not sure if he's offended Nagelsmann's fashion sense or something. I was expecting to see him at the weekend, and he couldn't even get a game in that match. So I don't know whether or not he's just not performing very well in training or what have you, but I was really looking forward to seeing how he get on after his move from Salzburg. But I think, they're a side that has got the ability to hurt this PSG team. And PSG have shown that defensively they're not rock solid at all by any stretch since Thiago's left. And yeah, I mean, I can't
believe I'm the only one back in PSG on this.
But I'm sorry. I think, to be fair, the team news again is one of those matches where the team news is going to be important. PSG have got a lot of players who are either injured or on their way back. We don't really know what's happening with Verratti. He's hugely, hugely important to them. And, his importance has been magnified by his absence. And when you see Ander Herrera and Gay in the middle of that midfield and Marquinhos, they're not of the standard that they should be for a team that's trying to challenge for top trophies. So I think I like unders as well. I think there is some risk with that, obviously, because they're both teams that are capable of scoring and conceding. I probably personally would lean towards Leipzig on the handicap of all of the bets, but again, it's nothing firm at this stage for me.
Okay, all right, there we go. Final game we're going to have a in-depth analysis of is the other game in Group B. Group B is Real Madrid and Inter Milan, but the other two sides are meeting in what could be a really interesting game. Shakhtar against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Shakhtar currently top of the group with 4 points from 6. You can get them at 3.12 to win at home. Borussia Mönchengladbach offered at 2.3. They've got 2 draws, remember, from their 2 matches, and the draw is available at 3.8. You can get Shakhtar with a quarter goal start at 1.93. Borussia Mönchengladbach at minus a quarter goal at 1.99. And the goal line here set at potentially interesting over 2.75 goals, which is at 1.82. I was looking at Shakhtar's home record in the Champions League. It's not very good. They haven't won in the last 7, I think it is, at home. Is that going to change, brothers? Are you interested in backing Shakhtar, or are we looking at goals in this?
I think it could change. I mean, I think if you look at their recent record, they've been unlucky that they've been drawn with Man City. for most of the occasions for the last few years in the group stages. Their losses in the last few years have been only to Man City or to Atalanta, obviously last season. So I think they're a team that are generally very strong at home, and they're a side that's bringing back a lot of players at the moment. So obviously when they had that Real Madrid match, a lot of absentees, which we know about, and they brought in a lot of young players, and they obviously produced a fabulous performance. Those young players were kept for the next game, so the likes of Tete and Solomon and so on. But we're starting to see some of the more established players returning to fitness or getting clearance from COVID and so on, the likes of Tyson. I'm not sure what the status of Junior Moraes is for this match. I'm waiting to hear on that, and that's obviously very important because
Top scorer, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's their main goal threat. Without him, they still score goals, of course.
Without him, they still scored 3 against Real Madrid in 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think most teams would have scored 3 against Madrid in that performance. But I think they're a really good attacking side. I think Borussia Mönchengladbach aren't that great. I think they've been flattered a little bit in their results so far. I think Inter should have beaten them in the first game. I think they played a below par Real Madrid, and I know they're unfortunate to sort of concede that late equaliser, but it's a side that doesn't fully convince me. I mean, I like Thuram, I like Player, I like them going forwards, and I think they'll score in Shakhtar. But I also think that Shakhtar will give them plenty of problems. So I think for me, I'm looking at Shakhtar on the handicaps, and I'm looking at the goal line because I think, again, they're two clubs that are looking at the next 2 fixtures and thinking, if we can get 4 points from the next 2 fixtures, we're really putting ourselves in a brilliant position to qualify, knowing that Real and Inter have got to face off for the next couple of games as well. So big match for both, and I expect Shakhtar to be positive in this game, where they set out against Inter in the last to get a draw. I think they'll set out in this match to try and get 3 points, and I quite fancy them to do it, to be honest.
Mark, you quite liked the look of this game. You were interested. You wanted to talk about it. Are you with Brothers and backing Shakhtar, or is it goals?
No, I'm completely on board with both of Brothers' angles there. Shakhtar on handicap and over 2 3/4 goals. This group's been really good fun, actually, hasn't it, with Real Madrid and Inter Milan as well. Gladbach probably kicking themselves, thinking they could easily have 6 points, but conceding those last-minute goals. The reality is they haven't been as good as those results probably suggest, and I do think there's a soft underbelly there, particularly away from Mönchengladbach as well. I think they're very gettable. I knew Brothers would talk and wax lyrical over Shakhtar, so I've kind of left that to him, really. So I'll sort of take the Gladbach side of things, and they are a team in transition who can cause problems. They like to press high and counter. Marco Rosa's picked a very attack-minded team for those first 2 games, and he'll feel vindicated by the results. But I think if you do sort of analyse those games in a bit more depth, you'd realise that they have probably not been as good as they probably should have been with those players on toe. And they were second best in that win against Leipzig at the weekend, so they did make changes and rotate their team. But as I say, they're not a team that completely convinced me outside of Gladbach, and they went off as outsiders actually at home to Leipzig at the weekend, which kind of goes to show the market's a bit indifferent to them too. Their open play numbers this season have been quite unconvincing. They've conceded at least, an aggregate of over 6 expected goals against Madrid and Inter. I appreciate that's Madrid and Inter, and Shakhtar are probably a little less down on the pillar than them, but even still, I just think, as he says, that the group dynamics make this a really fascinating game. I do expect Shakhtar to come to the party. Club ELO ratings actually give them a 44% chance of winning this, which kind of equates to odds about 2.25, 2.3. So it's really surprising to basically see them as outsiders in Ukraine against Gladbach. I'm not buying that at all. That poor home record, it's not great when you look at it in terms of greens and reds in terms of wins and losses, but the only teams to have beaten them in Ukraine since 2005 in this competition, PSG, Real Madrid, Man City and Atalanta. So Gladbach are nowhere near that level. So for me, it's definitely all in on Shakhtar plus a quarter, but wouldn't be putting anyone off over 2 3/4 either.
Okay, good. Some very solid selections there. All right, so those are the 4 matches that we've had an in-depth look. Let's just recap our feelings, our bets for those game for the Atalanta Liverpool. over 3.5. Obviously, Real Madrid, Inter, we're not entirely 100% sure, but potentially Inter plus a quarter, Brothers was suggesting. Leipzig, PSG, maybe under 3.25, or Leipzig plus a quarter. And for Shakhtar against Mönchengladbach, Shakhtar, back them any way you like on the handicap to win, and also have a look at over 2.75 goals as well. Those were our suggested bets from those 4 games. It's time for our best bets of match day 3. I'm not a clairvoyant, but I think I know what the best bet of match day 3 for Ian Broderick is going to be. Brothers, what is your best bet?
I'm going under 2 point. No, actually not. Atalanta versus Liverpool over 3.5 goals.
Yes, it is a very clear selection, backed up by the statistics, by both teams and by their records as well. Mark, your best bet for match day 3?
I'd love to piggyback that bet, but I can't, can I? So fair play to Brothers. He sent it to the WhatsApp group at the weekend before anyone could even look at the fixtures. So I'll take Shakhtar plus a quarter goal on the Asian handicap.
Okay, there we go. Those are our best bets of match day 3 for you to have a look at. That's it for this edition of the Matchbook Champions League podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again ahead of match day 4, so make sure you join us then. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcasting app. We'll speak soon. See you later.